Hello and welcome to the debate on France 24. I'm Andrea Sankey in Paris. Tonight, the price of protest. As the French vocalize their objection to China's treatment of Tibet, French business could find itself caught in the middle of a contentious political debate. In his own show of defiance, French President Nicolas Sarkozy said he wouldn't rule out a boycott of the Olympic opening ceremony if China did not open a fresh dialogue with Tibetan leaders. In response, the Chinese criticized France for lacking objectivity, but nothing was said, at least officially, about penalizing French business. But when French demonstrators destroyed the Paris leg of the Olympic torch relay, some Chinese citizens felt pushed to demand a boycott of French products. Here's a look at that.
For the Olympic torch relay, the Paris leg was one of the roughest so far. Not surprisingly, the sight of French protesters disrupting the event has sparked angry posts from many Chinese internet users. In response, some have called for a boycott of French goods and companies, including the retail giant Carrefour, which they accuse of supporting pro-Tibetan groups. Now the Chinese government has given its tacit backing to such a boycott, saying people can and will express their opinion in accordance with the law.
France should take an objective position on recent events, respect the facts and tell the truth. France should, like most other countries, understand the justified position and reasonable measures taken in Tibet by the Chinese government.
The boycott's expected to begin on the 1st of May, and with 100 supermarkets in China, for Carrefour the stakes are high. If shoppers snub its outlets in significant numbers, it could cost the group dearly.
So, do rough waters lay ahead for Carrefour and other companies in China, or will business be spared in the contentious run-up to the Beijing Olympics? Joining me tonight to discuss those questions and others, to my right here in the studio, Stefan Simons, Paris correspondent for the German weekly Der Spiegel. To my left, Lucy Liu, a correspondent for the Chinese Phoenix TV. And joining us via satellite from Washington, D.C., Wing-Tai Wu, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. Thanks all so much for joining us tonight. Let me begin then in the studio to my right. Just how seriously are you taking these calls, mostly via the internet and mobile phone text messages, for a boycott of Carrefour and French companies in China?
Oh, I mean, given the fact that Carrefour, with 120 shops and supermarkets and quite a bit of sourcing in China, is considered one of the benchmark supermarkets in China, it could be a disaster for Carrefour. And I think that really this is people's voice speaking out here, albeit I think with a tacit green light of the leadership. But nevertheless, I think there's a high degree of national anger here involved, combined with a mix of feeling of probably anger against the Westerners who try to intermingle with Chinese affairs, and I think that nationalism finds its outlet right now. And if France gets targeted, especially in service industry, that might be very bad for Carrefour.
Okay, Wing-Tai Wu, could that high degree of anger really hurt French business, in your opinion?
I think it might. But it would be most likely for a short period of time, largely because we have seen similar protests in China before against goods from Japan for Japanese refusal to apologize for atrocities during World War II. And those things have faded out quite quickly. And if you look elsewhere in Asia, where such a move is quite common, like, for example, right now in Malaysia, they have a protest against goods from Holland because of the recent screening of a film that was critical of Islam. So, yes, there have been such incidents, but their effects have not been long-lasting.
Okay. Lucy, would you hesitate to overestimate the effect this call for a boycott could actually have on French business?
Actually, I've been talking just now with some of my Chinese friends in China, mainland. Well, at the beginning, the original idea is not to boycott Carrefour, it's to boycott LVMH. Because
luxury goods producer.
According to certain informations that the one of the big boss bosses had already given money to some NGO organization who's supporting the independence of Tibet. Well, as it concerns, it does not concern to a lot of Chinese not to go to buy LV, not to go to buy Dior. So they found that, well, gap food, that's something more universally in China and easily to boycott. Well, most of the Chinese people, as I just talked with them, they do not think that's a wise idea. That's just, instead of a serious boycott, for most of the Chinese people, they think it's as a symbol of giving their voice, that they are tired of hearing and seeing all the manipulations from the Western media, from all the interruptions. So they are showing their voice to show to the rest of the world that they are watching, they are listening to what's happening, and they are tired of seeing being given lessons or being slapped on the face by saying by certain French papers.
Right. So, I mean, it's fair to say, yes, many Chinese consumers are angry over what they've seen happen in France.
They are angry, but most of people, they don't think it's a wise idea of boycott.
To boycott.
Using boycott, facing the boycott, it's not a solution.
Yeah,
right?
I think, Carrefour happens to be the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And I find it ironic that now the government comes in and defends free speech in China. That's what we just seen in that short clip. If it's convenient for Beijing leadership, that kind of voice of the people is heard and is being listened to. So here we go. And Carrefour just finds itself to be in the focus of that public anger.
Right. But as Wing Tai pointed out, that was actually the perfect example. I mean, we saw violent riots break out in China when the Japanese president visited the war shrine that many say honored war criminals that massacred Chinese people. And in the end, the balance sheets of Chinese businesses lay unaffected by the calls to boycott Chinese products or Japanese products in China. It really made no difference to business in the end.
Well, I think Lucy has made a point. It is highly symbolic. And of course, it won't last. It certainly will be stopped before the Olympics starts, because that would make China not look good. So it's going to be around for the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll wait until the EU High Commissioner comes in for trade. We'll see how that meeting is going to go. And finally, this is going to bleed out. And then, people have let off the steam. Everyone is happy. And it won't make a big dent into Carrefour, and certainly not a big dent into French business on a whole, because the big money is with atomic energy, trains, Airbus.
Right.
And also, it depends on how the French, especially political people, reaction. That's a symbol, as we said. It started by only one day action, and then that's lasted. But most of Chinese, even some Chinese, are saying, well, wait a minute, if we boycott gap food, because the gap food in China, all the employees, most of them, they are Chinese. Yeah. So we should not boycott ourselves as an answer, reply to the other boycott. So that will stop. But the information, the feedback from France, for example, there's even one deputy saying, well, until October, if Chinese will not change the situation in Tibet, we should do the boycott to the Chinese goods as well. That's not a right reaction, and that will not help for the situation.
Wing Tai Wu, let me ask you a question. Which do you think was more humiliating for the Chinese? Sarkozy's threat to boycott the opening ceremony, or the debacle over the Paris leg of the Olympic torch relay?
Well, I think the absence of one particular leader from the opening of the Olympics would not meet with much significance. But I think they were all, I think it was a shock to see the outrage in Paris. And the thing is that outrage is repeated in other countries of the world, like the United States, where they actually have to change the route of the
relay in San Francisco.
Of the relay, yeah. But more importantly, I think how much attention will be focused on this boycott that you talk about depends on what happens in the other parts of the relay. For example, it has still to go to Australia, where there is significant, there could be significant organization efforts on behalf of the Tibetans. And